Hey, this is Coach Smith, and basically, I would like to go over problems 2 and problems 14 of the assignment for multi-step equations, as in solving them. Uh, Number 2, let me go ahead and put it up here on the board. Okay, it is, here we go. Problem 2, it is 6 subtract 1 subtract 2n plus 5. Okay. Now, for some reason, there's not an equal. Oh, it's equal right here. I'm sorry. The printout's a little bit faded, so I had a hard time there. All right. So that's what we're dealing with here. And as a quick review, I want to basically just go over the things we're trying to do. When you're solving an equation, you want to look and see if you need to. Will you go ahead and close that door for me all the way? That'll be fine. I appreciate it. When you're solving a multi-step equation, there's going to be lots of steps, hence the multi-step. So what I want you to think about is, can I simplify the equation on the left or the right side, or maybe even both sides, before I start moving numbers across the equal side, getting that variable by itself? Like in this case right here, the left side pretty much is 6. There's nothing you can really do with that. It's going to drop down into the next step. But if you'll look closely, you'll see that you have two numbers here, the numbers 1 and the numbers 5, and we should be able to add those just like you would add any two regular numbers, two integers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this 5 and this 1, and I'm going to put the answer there, and then anything left will just drop down. So what do we get when we add 1 and 5? 6. Now they're both positive. They're both going to add. And here's the thing. If you've been using a calculator and it's been okay with your teachers up till now, I don't have a problem with it. You can use a calculator. It's not a problem. All right. And again, we're going to put the TI 84 emulator on our Chromebooks as an extension here, maybe even today before we leave. So if I combine the 1 and the 5, that gives me a 6, and that negative 2n just drops down right there. Okay, so now we've got an equation that's got 6 on the left and 6 subtract 2n on the right. Now I'll look to see if I can simplify. All right, we can't simplify 6. On the right side, 6 can't take away 2n. They're unlike terms. Like variables with the same exponents can only add and subtract other variables with the same exponent. 6 doesn't have a variable. So now we know it's time to get the variable by itself. Okay, n needs to be by itself. In this case, it's on the right side of the equation. So we need to move the 6 and then the negative 2. So let me ask you a question. What is the sign of this 6? Is it positive or negative? Yeah, it's positive. If they don't put a sign or put a subtract in front of it, it's positive. And now this is the great part of solving equations. You simply do the opposite of what's there. What's the opposite of a plus 6? Negative 6. Absolutely correct. So I'm just going to subtract or put a negative 6, however you want to think about it, underneath the like terms on both sides of the equation. Now, the 6's drop out, and that leaves us negative 2n on the right. The 6's over here drop out. And since they're the only things over there, I'm going to go ahead and drop that 0 down. I could have dropped a 0 down here and had 0 minus 2n, but in the next step, the 0 would have been gone. Over here, since it's the only thing we've got, let's go ahead and leave it. Now, if we look at the right side, we've got one more step. To get n by itself, we have to move this negative 2 that's in front of the n. It's called a coefficient. And whenever you have a number and a variable right next to each other without a plus or a minus or anything, you assume it to be multiplication. Just like we knew that this 6 was positive, even though they didn't put the plus sign there, when you have a number in front of a variable, you just know that it's multiplication. So I'm going to ask you, what's the opposite of multiplying by negative 2? Dividing. Yeah, just dividing by -2. Absolutely. So we're going to divide both sides by -2. If you divide -2 into 0, it goes 0 times. And if you divide -2 into itself, it goes 1 time. Okay? So you get 1n, which is n. And that would be the answer for number 2. Now, I know some people like to put their variable on the left side, and that's cool. You'll just have an extra step. But, always box up your answer and show as many steps as you can. And that's it. Now, as you work these things, I know there's times where I may go a little fast, or in the video I may go a little fast, but there's an easy way around that. Hit pause. Skip back a few seconds and you can see the step if I go too fast for you. All right. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and work number 14. So let me clear the board. And again, don't panic. This is going to be posted on the classroom site, and you'll be able to go back and finish it up if you need to. So let me clear this, and I'm going to be working number 14. So if I can find my cursor, let's put 14 here. And 14 is a little more complicated. You have 5n plus 34 on the left, and that's equal to -2 times the expression 1 minus 7n on the right side. Okay? So our first step when we have complicated equations to solve is to try to simplify each side if we can. So I'm going to look at the first side here, the left side, and I have 5n plus 34. Well, they're unlike terms. One part, the 5n part, has an n in it. The other part, the 34, is just a number. Can't add numbers and variables together. Not and get an answer. On the right side, on the other hand, we have a parentheses. And if we think about our order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, it says do what's in parentheses first, work with exponents, and then do multiply, divide, add, subtract. That's where please excuse my dear Aunt Sally comes from. It tells you what to do in what order. Well, 1 and -7n are unlike terms. We can't add or subtract them. Now, out in front, again, we've got something where we have a number in front of a symbol. We have a number in front of a symbol, which means multiply. Okay? They don't put the multiplication dot, but it's applied. It's assumed to be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the distributive property. Does anybody here remember distributive property? Hold your hand up if you remember the distributive property. Okay? If you don't, that's cool, because I'm about to go over it. And what the distributive property allows you to do is just sort of bypass the order of operations for a step so that you can progress in a problem. So we can't really add up or subtract what's in the parentheses, but we can multiply using the distributive property. So I'm going to get my arrows popping. I'm going to put those little arrows underneath there so it will remind myself and anybody else that looks at this problem that I'm going to use the distributive property to multiply that -2 times everything in the parentheses. Okay? So I think now that I've got my plan together, I'm going to go ahead and start. Now the left side is just going to be patient. It's going to drop down for the next step. Okay? Now when I multiply the -2, I'm going to do it one piece at a time. I'm going to multiply this -2 out in front times the 1. So if I have my calculator, I would put -2 times 1, and that would give me -2. Now, I've got the first arrow taken care of. I've got my first multiplication taken care of. Now I'm going to work the second one. I'm going to work the one where I have -2 times -7n. Why is it negative? Because it's got a negative sign in front of it, or subtract. So when I multiply a negative times a negative, I get a positive. And if I had a calculator, I would just multiply the coefficients. I mean, the -2 times the -7 coefficient. And just remember there's going to be an n in the answer because that n isn't going to disappear. All right. So I multiply -2 times -7. I get positive 14. That's the two numbers multiplying together. 2 times 7 is 14. And don't forget you have an n that's attached up here. You don't want to lose it. Okay. So we've simplified this. We've got rid of the parentheses in the first step where we use the distributive property. Okay. Now we look at it and we try again. Can we simplify anything? Nope, not on the left or right. There's no like terms. I can't add a bunch of n's together on the left or on the right. And I only have one number apiece on the left and the right, so I can't really add them to anything. So what I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to start moving stuff over the equal sign until I get the answer. So I have a 5n on the left and I have a 14n on the right. I need to get my n's on the left side or the right side so I can move all the numbers away from them. So I'm going to combine my n's. So what I do so that I avoid negative numbers, because sometimes negative signs trip me up, is I'm going to move the smaller of the two. I've got 5 n's on the left and I have 14 n's on the right. Which is more, 5 of something or 14 of something? Yeah, think about it as pizza. If I had 5 slices of pizza, I don't have as much as if I had 14 slices of pizza. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the one that's smaller, the 5n. And again, what's the sign of the 5n? Yeah, so now I know to do the opposite. What's the opposite of a plus 5n? Negative 5n. So wherever there's an n on both sides, subtract that 5n, okay? And what's going to happen is we're going to lose it on the right side, and we're going to gain it on the right. We're going to move all our n's to the right side. We're going to combine them. We got to do that if we're going to solve. All right, so the 5 n's on the left drop out. The 34 drops down. The equal sign drops down. The negative 2 drops down. And all we have to do here is add a positive 14 in and a negative 5 in. So I have a positive 14 and a negative 5. Again, if I've got my calculator, I go 14, subtract 5 equals, and then I have my coefficient. I just have to remember there's going to be an n at the end of it, okay? So if I'm doing it by hand, I don't have a calculator to type into. So I'm going to just use an old trick this middle school teacher taught me about positive and negative numbers. And I'm just worried about the 14 and the 5. Okay, I'm not worried about the n's right now. They'll take care of themselves, all right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, I declare a number war. Who's got more? Is 14 more or less than 5? Which is more, 14 or 5? 14. So what sign is in front of the 14? Is it plus or minus? Plus. So the answer is going to be positive. Okay. Now, how many more is 14 than 5? If you had $14 and your friend had 5, how many more dollars would you have than him? 9. That's right. But it's not $9. Uh-oh. Let me undo that. Hit a button while I was drawing. It's not $9 you have. It's 9n. 9 of the variable n that you have right there. So look, we've simplified it yet another step. So now we have an n on the right. We need to move that 2. Let me make it look more like a 2. We're going to move that negative 2 over to the left, and then we're going to get rid of this 9 that's multiplied. Okay? So what's the opposite of a negative 2 if we want to move it? Positive what? Positive 2. So put a positive 2 underneath the numbers of both sides and total it up. Bada bing, bada boom. The 2's drop out on the right because any number added to its opposite is 0. 0 plus 9n is just 9n. On the left side, we have 34 plus 2 more, which would give us 36. Booyah. Okay? Now, the last step is to move that 9 by using the opposite operation. So how is that 9 connected to the n? What did I tell you? If you have a number and a variable and there's nothing else, what do you assume it to be? That's right. And what's the opposite of multiply? Yeah. So we're going to divide both sides by 9, and then we'll have our answer. Okay. So while I'm doing that and getting the 9s to drop out on the left, or excuse me, the right side, how many times will 9 go into 36? 3? 4. That's right. That's right. 4 times. That's a good guess. But 4 is the correct answer. So we have 4 equals n, or if you prefer it the other way, n equals 4. And that, my friends, is number 14. Now remember, when you're working these problems, take your time, show your steps. You have until next Friday to turn them in. And we're going to turn them in using Google Classroom. We're going to photograph our papers that we worked it out on. We're going to attach each of those photographs in the classroom where it says submit your work. That will be your work. And then you'll send them to me using Classroom. Okay. And that'll be a great thing to do. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start to try to get this video to stop. I've had some trouble getting the controls to pop up on this thing sometimes. It just depends on what I actually hit here. I don't know why. I think because I'm using two monitors, it's confusing it. But I've got to figure out how to close these videos down. It's getting ridiculous. All right. Because I'm running like a minute or two over because I can't get the thing to basically stop when I want it to. So I just can't get it done. There's a little thing down here. That's not it. Doggone it. I don't know what it's going to want me to do. It started to load just now and I clicked on something. So it just didn't want to do it. Options. No. This is really amazing. I think the end of the video is going to be longer than the entire video. Screencastify is a great app. Here we go. I've got it. We'll see you next class, folks.